Welcome to Vision Television. This is a show all about the College of Arts and Sciences. And today we're going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart. And to help me with this discussion, I am sitting with Dr. Robert West. He is the Department Head of Classical and Modern Languages and Literatures.
Well done.
Or CMLL.
Yes.
And then also, too, you are a professor of English.
That's true. That's right. I joined CMLL 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know they're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to have you in that position as well.
It's worked out pretty well. It's an interesting career move after 19 years in the Department of English, which I love. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and being in two areas in the humanities,
right,
but also too this topic that I mentioned near and dear to my heart. Today we want to talk about liberal arts education and the importance of it. And I think too, so many people don't understand what it is. So can you tell us, what does it mean to get a liberal arts education?
Sure. One idea that I find I often have to address is the idea that liberal arts means the humanities, that we're just talking about English and history or something like that. But really it's a much, much broader term. It goes back to this Latin term, artes liberales. And in that ancient sense, an art was just something you studied.
It wasn't a painting necessarily.
No, it certainly wasn't the visual art, but it also, wasn't just the humanities or something like that. It was any discipline, any field of study. And that term, artes liberales, meant the courses of study you would take if you were a free person. So this was an education that was deemed appropriate for someone who might be involved in government, who might be an official, or might be a voter, might be somebody who takes part in civic life. As of course, this is a slave in which there were a society in which there were enslaved people, and so this was an education that was deemed appropriate for somebody who was in charge of things or who could play a role in determining the way society went.
Or a leader.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Right. And so now over time, that sense of liberal changed. I think by the time John Henry Newman wrote his great book, The Idea of a University, in the 19th century, he was starting to see that term liberal referring to the breadth of that education. You took a little bit of a lot of different subjects.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that word, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you hear the term liberal today, you think left wing. When we're talking about liberal education.
Oh no, it has nothing whatsoever to do with political terms, not at all. Again, the original sense was liberal in the sense of, it's related to our word liberation. It was an education that was supposed to be appropriate for free people, and then later we have a movement toward the idea of it being liberal in the sense that it covers a lot. Right, absolutely nothing to do with right-wing, left-wing kind of terminology. But because of the discomfort with that in some quarters, this is how we get one term that we often hear today, and that is just to refer to such an education as an arts and sciences education. I mean, the term liberal arts education, liberal arts and sciences education, and liberal education, and arts and sciences education all refer to basically the same thing. It just means a very, very broad approach to teaching and learning that tries to teach students at least a little bit about a lot of different subjects so as to best equip them, hopefully professionally, but also personally. Right,
absolutely. And then, the big question we get is, well, what can you do with a liberal arts education? And I always come back with, what can't you do because of that? So what would you say to parents who say, well, what is this return on investment? Should my student major in liberal arts?
Yeah. I mean, I'm tempted to say, well, one thing you can do is be free. That goes back to that ancient sense, right?
Yes.
And actually, I mentioned John Henry Newman in that great book, The Idea of a University. He says one of the things that somebody gets from a liberal education is freedom. So what I would say to a concerned parent is look, we are living in uncertain times. It's always been true that no one really knows how their life's going to go, but it's especially true today. There's so much that's uncertain. And it was always a good idea to adopt a course of study that was going to help you be adaptable and intellectually flexible, that helps you be professionally adaptable, professionally flexible, to take a set of coursework that shows you all the different ways of looking at the world, is just going to set you up for success in life, professional and personal. And the career that you set out, I would say to such a parent, the career that your child may be setting out for today may not exist in 4 years. And it may be that your child will graduate into an economy that no longer has a place for someone who has prepared for that. So the narrower your collegiate preparation, the greater the risk you're running. Whereas if you get a degree, let's say from our college, if you study the liberal arts, you take a liberal arts education, then you are subjecting yourself to quite a course of study that really, it not only introduces you to lots of different ways of looking at the world, but it also trains you to be adaptable. You know, one semester, you know, you may have biophysics at 9 and then comparative government at 10, and at 12 you've got German 3, at 2 o'clock you've got world civilizations before 1500, and maybe at 7:30 that night you've got astronomy. I mean,
well-rounded.
You know, well, exactly. But the thing is, like, every day you're requiring your mind to practice different skills, to adopt a different perspective on the world. And after 4 years of that, I mean, you're really going to be well prepared to enter a world that is going to be asking you to change a lot. I mean, we see plenty of studies that show that, you know, students graduating college now, they cannot realistically expect to belong to a single profession, to have a single career for the entirety of their working lives. They need to be trained to be adaptable and flexible. And I think a liberal arts education is fantastic preparation for what lies ahead.
Absolutely. I know we've had this discussion before about communication. And so when I was wanting to study broadcasting and public relations, I could have gone to a trade school, but I got a liberal arts background because what was advocated to me was you need to be well-rounded in so many subjects.
Sure.
And in public relations and broadcasting, adaptability, critical thinking. And so in my vision, we need engineers, we need all fields.
Right.
But we also need grounded liberal arts to work with those. You can't be a good doctor if you can't communicate, have teamwork, critical thinking.
Right. You need to understand people to be a good physician.
Yes.
You know, if you're going into communication, well, what are you communicating about? You know, if you go to work for the PR department of a certain organization, do you know anything about what the organization does, what it represents? So yeah, absolutely. I think there's no question that a liberal arts education is really good preparation for
life.
Well, exactly. For anyone entering any sort of economic situation, but also just personally, students are going to learn a lot that they're not necessarily going to make a dollar from. They'll learn plenty of that too, but they'll also learn things, they'll be introduced to new facts, to whole aspects of the world that may come to mean a great deal to them that they might never have encountered if they had not pursued an A&S education.
And as we know, being the age that we are, work is one part of our lives.
Right.
But there's a whole other 8+ hours that I'm not working.
Right.
And I just need to know how to be a good citizen,
yes,
a good member of my community. How does liberal arts help that other part of our lives, the other side of work?
Absolutely. I mean, when we ask students to take classes in history and political science, in communication, in ethics, when we ask them to take classes in literary study, I mean, that's just one more way of studying human behavior.
Right.
When we ask them to take classes in psychology and sociology and other fields, we're teaching them about life, and we are equipping them to better appreciate and make the most of their time, not just while they're on the job, but beyond the job. And yes, help make them be better participants in democracy, more likely to be leaders. We know that people who complete liberal arts education tend to be more civically involved than other people.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and so it's a great, you often hear that a liberal arts education produces a well-rounded person, and it is important to remember that they're well-rounded in professional economic terms, but also in personal terms.
Right. And then going back to talk about that naysayer who might say, well, you're a well-rounded person, but can you have a job?
Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely can.
Well, sure, absolutely, yes. Absolutely. I mean, in fact, I mean, you're prepared. I mean, of course, we ask our students to major in something.
Right.
You know, so we do acknowledge the need to specialize some, but again, going back to the idea of promoting flexibility and adaptability, this is what students are going to need to have to succeed in the world that they're graduating into.
And especially this world right now.
Right. Well, yes. I mean,
more than ever.
A&I is going to revolutionize our lives in ways that we like and ways that we don't.
Right, right.
And we don't know how many jobs are going to survive. We don't know how many careers, how many professions are still going to exist just because of that one particular change in society, which
so
is
adaptability.
Quite dramatic. So, right, right. Yes, it's absolutely a great preparation for life. And it is good for students economically, but also personally.
So we have about a minute left. What would you like to finish with as far as educating a general public, students, parents, the community about the liberal arts?
Well, I would just say that I think it's a useful metaphor to think of college education as building a house. And if you have a house, you want some windows in your house. And I would just ask anybody, you know, how many windows do you want in your house? And if you're happy with just one window in your entire house, well, good for you. Then you can go pursue the very narrowest form of higher education you can find. But if you would like to have more than one perspective on the world outside your house, a liberal arts education is for you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. West. And if people have other questions about liberal arts, we are happy to answer them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for your perspective. And thank you so much for watching Vision TV.